This message will find the person who needs it most. Stop for a moment, not because someone told you to, but because something inside you already slowed down. Before any words settle in, before any meaning forms, notice this pause. You felt it. That small internal hesitation before scrolling away. That quiet sense that this moment deserved a few seconds more. Most people do not stop when they are at peace. They stop when something inside them is asking to be acknowledged. And right now, that part of you is awake. This is not about coincidence, not about chance, not even about belief yet. It is about awareness, about recognizing that you did not arrive here distracted. You arrived here receptive. There is a difference. Distraction pushes content away. Receptivity pulls meaning closer. And you did not click confidently. You clicked carefully, almost cautiously, as if some part of you hoped this would make sense without demanding anything from you. Think about that. Out of countless voices, noises, and distractions, this is where your attention landed. Not because you were bored, but because you were open. And openness usually comes after fatigue. After trying to hold things together for too long, after answering questions for everyone else while quietly postponing your own. You may not have named it, but your mind has been asking for stillness, not stimulation, for clarity, not advice, for something that feels steady. Notice how nothing is being demanded from you here. No urgency, no pressure, just an invitation to observe what is already happening inside. That is intentional. Truth rarely needs to shout. It waits until the noise fades enough for it to be heard. And right now, your internal noise has softened, not because life became easier, but because you reached a point where pretending strength stopped working. This moment matters because it reveals something about where you are. You are not here to escape your life. You are here to understand it differently, to see it from a higher angle without disconnecting from reality. That is not weakness. That is discernment forming. The mind reaches this point before the heart can explain it. A moment where you stop asking what is next and start asking what is true. You do not need to agree with everything that follows. You do not need to decide anything. All that is happening right now is recognition. A quiet alignment between where you are and what you are ready to receive. That is how meaningful moments begin. Not with answers, but with attention. Not with certainty, but with presence. If you feel slightly more grounded than you did a minute ago, that is not imagination. That is what happens when the mind stops resisting stillness. And this stillness is not empty. It is preparing you to notice something you have been carrying without words. Something that has been influencing your thoughts, your energy, your patience. Something that has not been loud enough to demand help, but heavy enough to slow you down. Stay here. Not because you have to, but because you already chose to. And choices made in quiet moments tend to reveal what noise has been hiding. The weight you carry is not dramatic. It does not announce itself. It does not break you in obvious ways. It shows up quietly, in the way you wake up already tired, in the way simple decisions feel heavier than they should. You still function. You still show up. People around you might even admire your strength, but strength that is never set down turns into exhaustion that no one sees. This is not anxiety in the way it is usually described. It is not fear that keeps you awake at night with racing thoughts. It is something subtler, a constant internal pressure to keep things together, to not disappoint, to not fall behind. You carry responsibilities that do not belong on a list. Emotional weight, unspoken expectations, the invisible work of holding space for others while rarely being held yourself. You have learned how to stay composed while slowly emptying out. You tell yourself it is just a phase, that once this season passes, you will rest. But seasons have a way of overlapping. One demand flows into the next. And somewhere along the way, rest becomes something you plan instead of something you experience. The body keeps going, but the spirit starts conserving energy, not out of laziness, but out of survival. There is also guilt tied to this tiredness. Guilt for feeling drained when others have it worse. Guilt for wanting space when you believe you should be grateful. Guilt for needing help when you have always been the one offering it. So, you stay quiet. You manage. You minimize your own weight because it does not look heavy enough to justify stopping. But unspoken fatigue does not disappear. It accumulates. It shows up in shorter patience, in delayed joy, in a mind that struggles to fully rest even when nothing urgent is happening. It is the kind of exhaustion that comes from being emotionally available for too long without renewal. From being strong in ways that are never acknowledged, not even by yourself. You are not breaking down loudly. You are not falling apart in visible ways. You are simply running out of strength slowly, and that is harder to notice, harder to explain, and easier to ignore. Until moments like this one, when something finally names what you have been feeling without accusing you of weakness. Recognizing this weight is not self-pity, it is clarity. It is the first honest moment where you stop pretending that endurance alone is enough. And once this is seen, it cannot be unseen. Because awareness changes the way you listen, the way you receive, and the way the next message reaches you. There is a reason this reached you now and not earlier. Not when things were manageable. Not when you still believed you could push through without slowing down. Messages like this do not land when life feels under control. They arrive when the mind stops defending itself, when the usual inner arguments grow quiet. When you are no longer trying to prove anything to yourself or to anyone else. Timing is not about luck, it is about readiness. There is a moment when the soul becomes less interested in noise and more interested in truth, less interested in solutions and more interested in understanding. That moment cannot be forced. It comes after effort has been spent and after resistance has softened. You did not look for this, you allowed it. Think about how different this moment would feel if it had found you weeks or months ago. You might have dismissed it, you might have scrolled past it without noticing. Not because it lacked meaning, but because you were not open to receiving it. Receptivity grows out of weariness, out of realizing that control has limits, out of acknowledging that something deeper needs attention. This is not about destiny in a dramatic sense. It is about alignment, about the inner posture you are in right now. Your mind is not racing to fix everything. It is listening. That shift matters. It is the difference between information and insight, between hearing words and letting them settle, between distraction and understanding. Often, help reaches us when we stop insisting on handling everything alone, not because we have failed, but because we have reached the edge of our own strategies. This is where perspective changes, where you become capable of seeing meaning instead of just managing problems. That does not happen in moments of confidence. It happens in moments of honesty. This is why the timing feels personal, not because someone selected you, but because you are finally in a place where something simple can speak deeply. Your defenses are lower, your expectations are quieter, you are not demanding answers, you are allowing reflection, and reflection opens space for insight to form naturally. Nothing is being imposed on you here. This moment is simply meeting you where you are, and where you are right now is more open, more thoughtful, more aware than you may realize. That is not an accident. It is a transition, a subtle one, but real. Once this is understood, the question is no longer why this found you. The question becomes what you are ready to notice now that it has. Silence is often misunderstood. We tend to see it as absence, as distance, as something missing. But silence is rarely empty. It is full of work that cannot be rushed or explained. When nothing seems to be happening, something is usually being prepared beneath the surface. Growth that matters often begins where it cannot be seen. Think of roots before fruit. They spread quietly, strengthening what will eventually stand in the light. No one applauds that stage, no one notices it. Yet without it, nothing survives. In the same way, there are seasons where guidance does not come in clear instructions, but in pauses. Not because you are being ignored, but because you are being stabilized. We often want immediate clarity, clear signs, direct answers, but clarity too early can overwhelm instead of help. Some understanding requires a certain internal strength to carry it. Until that strength is formed, silence protects you. It prevents you from receiving more than you can process. What feels like delay is sometimes care. There is also a difference between silence and stillness. Silence feels uncomfortable because it removes distractions. Stillness feels purposeful because it centers you. Many people confuse the two. They assume nothing is happening when, in reality, something is being arranged in a way that will make sense later. Not now. Later. Waiting rooms exist for a reason. They are not the destination, but they are necessary. They give time for the body and the mind to adjust before movement resumes. Rushing out of them does not make things faster. It only makes them harder. The same is true here. This quiet stretch is not wasted time. It is integration. If you listen closely, silence often carries a message without words. It teaches patience without lecturing. It builds endurance without asking for effort. It reshapes expectations. It slows the need for control. And in doing so, it prepares you for what comes next, without overwhelming you. Some answers would not feel like relief if they came too early. They would feel like weight. That is why timing matters. That is why clarity sometimes waits until the heart is steady enough to receive it. What you interpret as absence may actually be restraint, not from neglect, but from care. Understanding this changes the way you experience the quiet. It becomes less threatening, less personal, less final. And once silence is no longer feared, it stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like preparation. There is a question that tends to surface only when everything slows down enough for honesty to emerge. It is not loud, it does not accuse, it simply waits, and once it is heard, it cannot be easily dismissed. What if the delay you have been frustrated with is not something working against you, but something working on you? We often assume that progress should feel like movement, like visible change, like momentum. When that does not happen, we conclude that something is wrong, that we are stuck, that we have been overlooked. But growth does not always announce itself through speed. Sometimes it shows up as stability, as the ability to remain whole under pressure instead of breaking under it. Ask yourself this gently. If everything you have been waiting for arrived all at once, would you be able to hold it without losing yourself in the process? Would it deepen you or stretch you beyond what you could sustain? This is not a question meant to discourage you. It is meant to shift your perspective from urgency to understanding. Delays are often interpreted as denial because we equate care with immediacy. But holding something back can be an act of protection, not to punish but to preserve, not to limit but to prepare. There are moments when what you need most is not change but reinforcement, not answers but grounding. This reframes the entire experience. Instead of asking why things are not moving, the focus becomes what is being strengthened. Instead of assuming abandonment, the possibility of support becomes visible. Support that does not always feel comforting in the moment, but proves essential later. This question does not demand an answer right now. Its purpose is not resolution. Its purpose is awareness. To create a pause in your usual narrative, to interrupt the belief that waiting equals loss. Sometimes waiting equals being held together when you do not have the energy to do it yourself. Let this thought sit without forcing meaning onto it. Let it challenge the assumption that progress must be obvious to be real, Because once this shift happens, the entire season begins to look different. Less like a setback, more like a quiet form of care that was easy to miss. This is where the message becomes personal. Not in a dramatic way, but in a precise one. Because everything so far has been leading to you, not as part of a group, but as one person in one specific season. You are not listening to this casually. You are listening because something in your life has been asking for attention at night, when the noise fades and the thoughts get clearer. You know those moments, when the day finally ends, but your mind does not rest. When you replay conversations you did not fully express yourself in. When you carry questions, you do not ask out loud because you are not sure how to phrase them without sounding weak. Those quiet hours reveal more truth than the busiest days ever could. This season you are in feels heavier, not because you are failing, but because you are aware. Awareness adds weight before it adds freedom. You notice what you can no longer ignore. The things that used to be manageable now feel demanding, not because they changed, but because you did. Your tolerance for misalignment has decreased. You have been praying quietly, sometimes without words, more like thoughts directed upward than structured requests. You have not been asking for dramatic changes. You have been asking for steadiness, for clarity, for something to help you feel anchored again. That kind of prayer does not come from impatience, it comes from maturity. You did not click this confidently, you clicked it tired of carrying clarity alone, tired of being the one who holds perspective for everyone else, tired of having faith that functions but rarely rests. That tiredness is not failure. It is a signal that something inside you is ready to be met with gentleness instead of effort. This moment is not asking you to become someone new. It is inviting you to stop abandoning yourself in the process of staying strong, to recognize that you are allowed to be supported without first falling apart, to let insight reach you before exhaustion does. When something speaks directly to where you are, it is not coincidence, it is alignment, and alignment does not rush. It settles, it creates a sense of being addressed without being exposed, of being understood without having to explain yourself. Stay with that feeling, because what comes next builds on it. There is a version of faith that feels like effort, like holding your breath and hoping it is enough, like staying strong even when your strength is quietly fading. Many people live there without realizing it. They confuse endurance with trust and control with commitment. But there is another way faith expresses itself, and it is quieter. Real faith does not always push forward. Sometimes it rests, not as resignation, but as confidence that not everything needs your constant management. There are processes unfolding beyond your awareness, behind the scenes, in ways you could not orchestrate even if you tried. Trust begins when you stop interfering with that process out of fear. Think about how fragile things are handled. They are not rushed. They are protected. They are given space. Pressure would destroy them. Time strengthens them. The same principle applies here. What is forming in your life right now requires patience more than force, presence more than performance. You are not being asked to believe harder. You are being invited to soften, to remain present without trying to predict outcomes. Faith in this sense is not about certainty. It is about stability, about staying grounded in what is true now instead of anxiously reaching for what might be next. This reframes trust entirely. Trust is not ignoring reality. It is engaging with reality without panic. It is allowing life to unfold without constant resistance. When you stop forcing meaning, meaning has room to appear naturally. When you stop demanding answers, clarity arrives quietly. You may notice that when effort decreases, awareness increases. That is not accidental. That is how faith matures. It becomes less about proving devotion and more about embodying peace, less about striving upward and more about settling inward. This kind of faith does not rush fragile things. It does not demand instant transformation. It understands that lasting change grows slowly, strengthened by consistency and care. And when faith reaches this point, it stops exhausting you and starts supporting you. Let that sink in. Because the next step is not about doing more. It is about releasing what you were never meant to carry alone. Take a moment to settle into this space. There is nothing you need to fix right now. Nothing you need to prove. Just allow yourself to be present. This is not a performance. This is a moment of honesty, where words are simply a bridge between where you are and what you're ready to release. You can begin by acknowledging the truth of your current state. Not the version you show others, but the one you carry quietly. The tiredness that lingers even after rest. The thoughts you manage during the day but feel more deeply at night. The questions that remain unanswered yet continue to shape your emotions. There is no need to judge any of this. Recognition is enough. You are allowed to admit where you are without fear of being diminished by it. Now let yourself release what you have been holding with effort. The pressure to stay composed, the responsibility of always being the steady one, the internal tension that comes from believing everything depends on you. You were not meant to carry life this tightly. Release does not mean giving up. It means loosening your grip enough to breathe again. You may want to imagine setting down what feels heavy, not throwing it away, not ignoring it, just placing it somewhere safe for a moment. Allow yourself to feel what it is like to not hold everything at once. Even a small release creates space, and space allows renewal to begin. As this space opens, let quiet hope take form. Not hope that demands specific outcomes, but hope that steadies you. The kind of hope that trusts presence more than answers. That believes support is real even when it is unseen. That rests in the understanding that you are not navigating this season alone, even when it feels solitary. Let this hope settle gently. It does not rush. It does not insist. It simply stays with you, offering steadiness instead of urgency. You do not need to feel suddenly strong. You only need to feel supported enough to continue. Remain here for a few seconds longer than feels comfortable. Let the stillness do its work. This is not wasted time. This is restoration beginning quietly. If this moment felt personal, there is no need to explain it to anyone. Some experiences are meant to be acknowledged quietly. Still, acknowledgement matters. It grounds what you felt and allows it to move from thought into intention. Not for display, not for validation. Just as a small inner agreement with yourself. You do not need to act dramatically. A simple response is enough. Something that marks this pause as real. Something that says you were present, not just listening. Many people carry moments like this and let them fade because they never gave them a place to land. Giving it a name, even silently, helps it stay with you. If you feel inclined, you can type a simple word like Amen or I receive this, not as a ritual, not as a public statement, but as a quiet confirmation that something resonated, that something shifted, even slightly. This is not about commitment, it is about continuity, letting this moment extend beyond the screen and into your awareness. There is no rush, no expectation of transformation overnight. The purpose of this is not to change who you are, but to stay connected to what you just noticed. Awareness fades when it is not acknowledged. Presence deepens when it is honored. You are free to remain silent too. What matters is that you do not dismiss what you felt. Small recognitions create lasting impact when they are respected. This is one of those moments. You are not late, not to understanding, not to growth, not to what is meant for you. Timing is not measured by comparison, and progress is not defined by how quickly things appear on the surface. Much of what matters unfolds quietly, away from attention, strengthening you in ways that only become clear later. You are not forgotten, not in the pauses, not in the waiting. not in the moments when clarity feels distant. Being unseen by others does not mean you are unseen where it matters most. Presence is not always loud, but it is consistent. And consistency holds you even when certainty wavers. This is not the end of your story. It is a turning point that does not demand urgency. It invites trust. What continues from here will build on what has already been forming within you. Nothing has been wasted. Nothing has been overlooked. You are still becoming, and that process is active even when it feels quiet. Let these words stay with you without forcing meaning. They are not meant to push you forward. They are meant to steady you where you stand, and sometimes that is exactly what allows the next step to appear naturally.